Good day, learners. You are welcome to another segment of Agricultural Science class. My name is Rashida Umar. Our topic for discussion today is the effects of some farming practices to the soil. Today we are going to talk about bush burning. We also look at overgrazing. After that we move to continuous cropping. We look at the crop rotation. Then we move to fertilizer application. After that, we move to the summary and we go to assignment. The following farming practices by farmers have various consequences or effect on the soil. My dear learners, when I said farming practices, this simply means the daily or day-to-day activities that is being carried on the farmland by the farmers. And these activities, they include the bush burning, fertilizer application, application of manure, tillage, clearing, grazing, and so on, which we are going to take them one after the other. And we said effect. When we say effect, we don't mean that maybe there are the disadvantages. Effect can be positive or negative. It can be merit or demerit. It all involves the advantages and disadvantages. So today we are going to talk about the effect. We are going to see the advantages and disadvantages of these farming practices on the soil. The first one is bush burning. It is common practice in Nigeria and West African countries, especially in areas within the forest belt with thick vegetation cover. This bush burning, mostly farmers like burning their bush, that is setting the bush on fire to reduce labor. Instead of the farmers to hire laborers to cultivate or to remove grasses on the farmland, what they do is just to set the bush on fire so that it's going to simplify or make the work easy for them. So let's look at the merit, that is the advantages of this bush burning. Number one, burning has some sterilizing effect on the soil. Because of the sterilizing effect, it means it burns some of the organisms or some germs that will really affect the soil. So they are being burned by fire. Secondly, it releases minerals like potassium and phosphorus to the soil in form of ash. When you burn the bush, at the end of the burning, you realize that you have ash. And this ash, they are They are potassium and phosphorus. They appear in form of ash. And this ash, they add nutrients to the soil. So that is another advantage of this bush burning. Number three, it stimulates the growth of fresh grasses, especially during dry season. Number four, it also destroys soil-borne pathogen or germs. This burning, it helps or it assists in burning or in destroying pathogens or germs that will really affect the soil. Number five, it destroys the seed of the wheat. On the process of burning, this fire, it burns or it destroys seeds of wheat. And these wheat, they are They can disturb your plants. But when the fire burns them, that means you are free of from the wheat. Now let's look at the demerits of this bush burning. That is, disadvantages of bush burning. Number one, it destroys the organic matter content of the soil. When you burn the bush, this fire, they destroy organic matter. And this organic matter, they are very helpful. They help in the composition of the soil. Secondly, it reduces the population of soil-living organisms. This fire, it burns or it reduces the population of soil-living organisms. And these soil-living organisms, they are very, very important. They are vital to the soil because they help or they assist in the composition. Number three, it oxidizes nitrogen and sulfur into their gaseous form, thus reducing their levels in the soil. When you burn the your farmland, what happens? Nitrogen and sulfur, they what? They expose, they become into gaseous form. They reduce their level. That means they evaporate as what? As gas. And that leads to what? To reduction of this nitrogen and sulfur in the soil. Number 5, it exposes the soil to erosion. When you are burning the bush, it what? It can expose your soil to erosion. It may raise the soil pH level of the soil. As we are saying, it adds some of these nutrients like the ash. So when they become too much in the soil, they what? They raise the soil pH. The soil pH simply means the acidity or alkalinity of the soil. Number 6, it destroys the structure of the soil. Because of this burning, the effect of burning, one of the effects is that it destroys the structure, the physical structure of the soil. Number 7, it reduces the soil water content. How does it reduce this soil water content? By what? By evaporation. It is evaporating. The water that is in the soil, they evaporate, and thus what? Reduces the content of the water in the soil. Number 8, it leads to environmental pollution. This burning can also lead to environmental pollution. Number 2 is overgrazing. Overgrazing is a situation where more animals than can be supported on a particular pasture are put there to graze. In other words, overgrazing is a way of exceeding the carrying capacity of the soil. This simply means when you put too many animals on a land to graze, and the animals, they are what? They are more than the carrying capacity. They are more than the land. So what they do is what? They overgraze. So let's look at the merit, that is the advantage of this overgrazing. Number 1, more feces are dropped, which could improve the fertility of the soil. Since you have put a lot of animals there, there are too many, so they drop a lot of what? Their dunks is there, a lot of feces. And these feces, it improves the soil fertility. Number 2, weeds can easily be eradicated from such land. So with the help of overgrazing, since there are so many animals there, they can easily finish all the grasses there. So it will what? It will eradicate grasses or weeds, the unwanted grass, from the farmland. Demerits, that is the disadvantages of grazing. Number 1, grazing depletes the vegetative cover of the soil. This depletion of vegetative cover, it means since they have overgrazed, the vegetative cover of the soil, they deplete. They are no more. Number 2, it causes poor growth and regenerative capacity of vegetation. Since they have been grazing there, it means there is not going to be what? Regeneration or capacity of the vegetation. Number 3, it exposes the soil to erosion. They have overgrazed, so they now what? They can expose the soil to erosion. Number 4, it destroys the soil structure. They also what? They destroy soil structure. It also leads to compaction of the soil, resulting from continuous trampling under animals' hoof. These animals, because there are too many on a land, so they what? They compact the soil using what? Their hoof. They compacted the soil. So it leads to what? Compaction of the soil resulting from continuous trampling, because they have been trampling that land. So it leads or it results to compaction. Number 6, compacted soil reduces water infiltration, and this leads to surface runoff soil or waterlogging. This simply means because they compacted this soil, so it now reduces infiltration. They have compacted the soil, so there is no air space that the water will go into the soil. So it results to runoff or waterlog. That is, the water will not go deep down to the soil, it will just be flooding or it will waterlog. There is going to be excess water left on the soil. Number 7, soil become poorly aerated, thereby depressing the activities of soil organisms. Because of the compartment, it's now the soil become poorly aerated. There is no space for air because they have already compacted the soil. So it is making it difficult for for soil organisms to live because they are being depressed. The third one is continuous cropping. Continuous cropping is another farming practice. This involves the growing of crops on the same piece of land every year without application of manure or fertilizer. In continuous cropping, it simply means the farmer will be cultivating his crops on the same piece of land continuously, year in, year out, without application of any fertilizer or manure. A merit of continuous cropping, that is the advantages. Number 1, it enables different crops to be grown and harvested. Here, we say the advantage is that it enables different crops. You can cultivate different crops and you can harvest different crops at the same time. Number 2, it maximizes the use of available space. Since we are using the same field, you are continuously cropping, cultivating year in and year out. That helps you in in maximizing the use of your available land. The little land that you have, you can manage it, you can use it. Demerit, that is the disadvantages of continuous cropping. Number 1, we said it depletes soil nutrients. Because you have been cultivating your crops year in and year out without application of any fertilizer or manure, and these your crops, they have been intaking the nutrient that is in the soil. So it will reach certain stage that there is not going to be enough nutrient in the soil because you are not adding nutrient, you are not applying fertilizer or manure. So that is why we say it depletes soil nutrients. That is, it will exhaust all the nutrients that are in the soil. Number 2, it ensures the spread or multiplication of germs. Since you are using the same piece of land, cultivating different type of crops on the same piece of land, it will It will ensure the spread or multiplication of germs. Number 3, it ensures the multiplication of pests and disease. Pests and disease are going to be They are going to be in multiples because you have been using same land every year without application of any fertilizer or manure, and you are using the same type of crops. So if you have a particular pest or disease that is being attached to a particular crop, it will remain there and it will It will be multiplying, it will become in multiples because you have not changed your cultivation. Number 4, it results in low yield of crops. Of course, your crops or your yield will be Will be in low quantity because you have not applied any fertilizer or manure, so you have exhausted almost all the nutrients in that soil. What do you expect? Low yield, of course. You have a very low yield. Crop rotation is another farming practice. Crop rotation is a system of farming whereby different crops are grown on the same piece of land year after year in a definite manner so as to maintain the fertility of the soil. Here in crop rotation, you have to what? You have to be rotating your crops, but what? In a definite manner. For example, when you cultivate, when you share your land into four portions or into two portions, the first portion you cultivate what? You plant your maize. Second portion you plant your, let's say cowpea, that is the leguminous crop. You are using the same land, but you are what? You are rotating the crop. And you have to do it in what? In a definite manner. Why do we do it in definite manner? Because some of the crops, they what? They add nutrient to the soil. For example, like the leguminous crops, that is the pulses, they what? They add nitrogen to the soil. So when you plant your leguminous crops in land B, the following year, you now exchange it. You take your leguminous crops to what? To land A, and you take the maize crop to land B, so that this leguminous crop is going to add back nitrogen into land A that has been exhausted by your maize. Now, let's look at the merits, that is the advantages of this crop rotation. Number one advantage is that it adds nutrient to the soil through nitrogen fixation. As we earlier said, most of the leguminous crops, they are what? They are cover crops, and they add nitrogen to the soil. So one of the major advantages of this crop rotation is that it adds nutrient to the soil through nitrogen fixation. It fixes the nitrogen to the soil. Number two, it increases the yield of crops. Of course, it's going to increase the yield of crops because it has what? It has already add nitrogen, or it has already add a nutrient to your soil. And if your soil is fertile, it means you are going to have what? Increase in what? In your crop yield. Number three, it controls the growth of weeds. Since we have been rotating our crops from indefinite manner, from leguminous to cereal, so it what? It now helps in what? In controlling weeds. It doesn't allow space for the weeds to grow. Number five, it maximizes the use of available land. With this system of farming, that is the crop rotation, it helps you to manage your land. Even if you are having a very small or little land, you can still manage it. You can what? Maximize it with the use of crop rotation. That is, you can divide your land. You plant a particular crops in a different section, while you plant the other one on different section. Year in, year out, you will be changing them in definite manner. Number five, it controls pests and disease associated with the soil. There are some pests and disease that are what? They are associated to the soil. So they need or they follow some particular crops. So here in crop rotations, since you are changing your crops, you are rotating the crops, they will not what? They will not survive in the soil. Because if really they are after a particular crop, for example maize, and the following year you change it into cowpea, maybe they may not be what? Friendly to cowpea. So that is why it really helps in control of pests associated with soil. Number six, it controls erosion. You know, erosion is the washing away of the soil, maybe by wind or water. And when you plant your what? Your pulses. Pulses, they are what? They are the leguminous crops. And these leguminous crops, most of them, they are what? They are cover crops. They cover the soil. So they will not even allow, or they will not give space for the rain or wind to cause erosion. Number five, fertilizer application. Fertilizer application is another farming practice. This involves the application of certain chemicals or substances to the soil, but to what? To improve its fertility. So this fertilizer, we say they are what? They are chemical substance that we what? We apply to the soil to what? To increase fertility. Examples of this fertilizer are Example of the chemical fertilizer, we have the NPK, we have urea, and so on. Now, let's look at the advantages of this fertilizer application. Number one, it supplements nutrient content of the soil. It supplements the nutrients that are being exhausted from the soil. When you apply the fertilizer, it replaces it, it supplements it. Number two, it enhances the production capacity of the soil. Since the soil is fertile, you have add what? Fertilizer. You are going to have what? Productive. Your capacity, it will enhance, it will improve what? Your productivity. Number three, it increases the population of microorganisms in the soil. Number four, it stimulates vegetation growth, hence it reduces erosion. Once you have vegetative growth, when the soil is covered, it makes it difficult for water or rain to wash away the soil. So it reduces erosion. Let's look at the demerits, that is disadvantages of fertilizer application. Number one, excessive application of fertilizers can cause soil acidity. These fertilizers, when you apply them to the soil, excessive use, that is when you are using too much of it, it can lead to soil acidity. That is, it becomes toxic, the soil becomes very toxic for the plants. Excess application can also reduce the activities of soil organism, because when the soil becomes toxic, it becomes very harsh on the soil organisms themselves. Number four, excessive application may also hinder the growth of crops. When the fertilizer is too much, the soil becomes toxic. And when the soil is toxic, it affects the growth of these crops. My dear learners, I think we have come to the end of this lesson, but let's take a summary of the lesson. We have seen we have talked about bush burning, in which we also discussed about the merit and the demerit. We have seen overgrazing, the merit and demerit of overgrazing. We have also talked about continuous cropping, their merit and demerit. We also proceed and talk about crop rotation, which we also see its merit, fertilizer application, merit and demerit. So my dear student, before I go, I will leave you with this assignment. Number one, write short notes on the effect of the following farm practices. Question number one, I said write short notes on the following effect of the following farming practices. Number one, bush burning. Number two, fertilizer application. 3, crop rotation. I take the assignment again. I said write short notes on the effects of the following farming practices. A, bush burning. B, fertilizer application. C, crop rotation. For further studies, you can consult the following textbooks. Number one, Essential Agricultural Science for Senior Secondary School by Iwena. Number two, Prescribed Agricultural Science for Senior Secondary School by S.A. Omuroi. So you can send your assignment, or if you have any question to ask, through the following numbers. Rashida Umar, that is myself, 080 34 51 35 76. 080 34 51 35 76. Or my colleague, Mr. Thomas Peter, 080 51 21 63 65. Stay home, stay safe, and always remember to wash your hands with soap and running water. Thank you for listening.